You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shoe In Show. Thanks for joining us. Hope things are all well for you and your family as we continue to emerge from our COVID caves out into the real world, flexing our social muscles. We're still doing this remote and digital. It's kind of fun to keep doing these shows digital. We're usually in studio, but it's quite nice to bring in our footwear family from around the world just as we're digital. Today's topic, Matt, is something we just recently did a survey of shoe executives, the top 100 executives in our industry. We asked them a ton of questions about their outlook, their company's outlook, the economic outlook, what they think is going to happen over the next 6 months. And based on Q1, we were assuming like COVID's still a big issue that people are concerned about. Consumer behaviors was a big thing about how they're changing patterns and what they're purchasing. And now it's all about cost and supply chain cost, right? I think it's something like 50% of respondents said that's a huge concern of theirs over the next 6 months, is dealing with how they're paying for it and then how they're passing it along and all those disruptions around the supply chain. So, anecdotally, what are you hearing from executives when you talk to them about the same kind of issues?
Yeah, Andy, you nailed it, bud. Costs are the number one challenge that the industry is facing right now. And it's not just our industry, it's economic. It's across the entire American economy. And we're seeing it in shortages and inflation. And the Fed keeps saying it's temporary. But the more you kind of talk to our members and the movement of goods and the expectation for a massive back to school season as kids get back to school for the first time in 18 months, and then a massive holiday season, you start scratching your head about, all right, is this really going to be temporary? And so one of the driving factors behind the increase in costs, Andy, is the amount it takes to bring that product to our shores. And we've heard about spot rates of $15,000 per container recently. And we keep tracking on our weekly calls with our members the cost of moving goods. So we wanted to bring in an expert to help talk through the challenges that they're seeing within the marketplace as it relates to transportation, some strategies to mitigate those cost increases, and just see if we can get some knowledge and wisdom from our friend Rex Paschall, who is the head Ocean and Surface Transport Americas at Apex Global Logistics. Our listeners might know Mike Pisa from Apex. He's been on this program before, and he is often in our member calls. But Rex, you seem to have a focus on the movement over ocean and surface. It's in your title. So welcome to Shoe In Show. We got a lot of questions for you, but we're super excited that you've joined us today.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks, Andy, for having me on the show today. I guess that you talked about the prices increasing and just astronomical prices that we're seeing in the ocean transportation and air freight, frankly, also. People often ask me, "What's the root reason of this?" It's what they ask, and so you really can't pin it down to one particular thing that's causing it. This is what's kind of really interesting in when you look at it, is that it's the result, in my opinion, it's the result of things that's happened over the last, let's say, 25 years. And so little things have been happening. For instance, the trade imbalance, it's growing bigger and bigger and bigger every year. And it's gotten to the point now to where in the ocean business, many of the containers that go back to Asia are empty. And so because of that, the ocean carriers then say, hey, I don't want my containers going, let's say, to these inland spots like Kansas City, Dallas, Memphis, even Chicago, that what they want is just to take it to the port, flip it around, the container, flip it around, and get it back out to the Far East or to the origin where they can load it again. And so that's one little variable in the equation. And then you add to that, for instance, another thing that I've come across is the chassis issue. A lot of the customers that we have, they struggle with finding available chassis at the destination on the import side, and that is a result of the actions of the ocean carriers over the last 10 to 15 years to get out of the chassis business and to turn the chassis responsibility over to chassis pools. And so then add to that the mega ships that's coming into play right now. We have vessels quite frequently that hold greater than 13,000 TEUs of containers, and so these massive ships have caused a funneling of the volume into certain ports. So, for instance, you don't see these massive ships calling Portland, right? So they're calling Seattle, they call Oakland, Los Angeles, they don't call San Diego. And so what's happening is that you have larger and larger volumes being concentrated down a narrow pipe. And so this narrow, thin pipe is the supply chain. And so if there's any interruption at all along this narrow pipe, then these problems that we're seeing are manifested. And when these problems get manifested, then the ocean carriers, they say, hey, we have the market rate is the market rate, and the prices go up. And so I wish I could say that there's a real simple solution to solve what's happening right now, but it frankly is it's very, very complex. And I can help you today to kind of talk through and discuss where I see the market headed and maybe to help your members.
Yeah, before we get to that, Rex, and I appreciate the historic kind of backdrop to this, because it's not a problem that just has arisen overnight. And it's not just a COVID problem, although COVID has exacerbated. And it's not just a Suez Canal thing that exacerbated as well. But what's interesting about what in conversation with you all at Apex is the fact that we're learning that the economy is recovering here in the U.S. post-COVID, but it's not recovering everywhere else. And so capacity is down just about 8% globally, but the carriers have to make a decision about, okay, they're going to call on ports in the U.S., but there's not as much inventory having to roll into South American ports, European ports, other ports. And so we're kind of a victim of our own success with the high demand and the improvement in our economy. That's issue number one. The second one is we look at mitigation strategies. I know one of the things is, hey, sign up early and grab capacity where you can grab it or get creative. And my hope is you can kind of walk us through those things. But at the same time, the carriers, you grab it early and they still won't confirm until you're a week out or 10 days out. And then you find out you don't have the capacity you thought you had, or you're not going to have the space that you thought you had. So it just seems like our importers are and I have not seen them. I've seen a number of internal emails with our member companies amongst themselves and to us about this is the most challenging environment they've ever faced in whatever their history is of their company or the executive's time at the company. And we as an organization that is mandated to provide responses to these types of challenges are struggling to advise on the best things to do. So my hope, Rex, on this program, you can help us figure out, are there silver bullets? Are there easy answers? Or what are some of the creative mitigation strategies that folks should be looking to implement?
Well, Matt, you hit the nail on the head about it being a unique challenge. This has never happened before. And so when you look at the plan to, let's say, like I sign a service contract early. I have guaranteed space, but the real matter is that, for instance, right now, like in Yantian, the port is restricting export loads coming into the port. You've got the the COVID-19 rearing its head again in the Pearl River Valley area, and then because of that, you have vessels that are simply skipping Yantian. And let's say you had guaranteed space. It's not going to do you any good if the vessel doesn't call Yantian port. And so, and so, uh, a lot of the good intentions that the supply chain managers had to make plans, it can simply be thrown out the window when stuff like this happens, and a lot of uncontrolled variables, as I would say. So let me just kind of, if you want me to, Matt, I can kind of go through some of the alternatives that I've seen working for some of our customers.
Yeah, go for it.
So one of the things that we're doing at Apex is, again, a lot of our customers are based in the Midwest, in the Ohio Valley and in Chicago area and in like Texas. And so a lot of our customers are seeing that it's very difficult to get space to those inland destinations. And so what we're doing is that we are attempting to terminate as many containers possible on the West Coast, on the imports from Asia, and to transload the containers. And so when we do that, it's very important that we pre-plan ahead of time, because it's a case where many times the warehouses in Seattle, Oakland, Los Angeles, they're so full and at capacity right now that we have to plan very well ahead of time. And so when we do that, we can transload those containers, and then we can even put it on pallets, shrink wrap, put it on pallets, maybe even do some sorting of the POs. And so then we load it into domestic trailers and then send it either by intermodal rail from those port city warehouses to the ultimate customer's door, or we can also look at perhaps even putting it directly to your end customers, like a DC bypass type of a situation, because we've already separated the POs, the orders at the transload facility. So why would you want to bring it into your DC, right? So we can help you with that. So when you look at the capacity of where the containers can go now, look, let me just give you a big overview here. So if you're looking at Asia to North America, for instance, the Gulf, the all-water Gulf service, it is completely full. It's almost impossible to get extra space to the Gulf. The East Coast, a little bit better, but not much better. The best excess capacity that we would ever come by is Los Angeles, because there's so many containers that's moving from Asia to Los Angeles. Or alternatively, I'd say the number 2 option is Seattle. Oakland in the last month or so has become very, very congested. In fact, on Friday, I looked at a report and there were containers waiting to berth in Oakland up to 12 days waiting to berth. It's just nuts that it's taking so long to have a vessel come in, and then it takes that long then to have capacity or space at the terminal to dock. So hopefully that can give you that helps you a little bit in some of the things that we're seeing.
I mean, does this speak to the importance of agility then? I mean, we've talked about agility for years now. And I would say like 3 or 4 years ago, that became a big buzzword where it's like, we're trying to be really agile. And we're like, well, that's cool. That's a cool word.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's better than innovative. It's like an addition to it. We're trying to be innovatively agile, right? So you can just combine it if you want to. But it really does speak to that now. Like this whole idea of transparency in your supply chain and knowing where everything is and chain of custodies and the technologies, and the agility to make decisions in real time to say, okay,
Mhm.
because what you're talking about is if you were trying to birth at Oakland and you saw that, then all of a sudden you've got to pivot. There's no way that you can get your product in time to your retailers, your
Mhm.
customers, to make them happy. And there's no way you can do it at the right price without, making your shareholders or your
Uh-huh.
the people that's you're responsible to, make them happy as well. This is like a really tight, it's like threading the needle
Uh-huh.
these days with supply chains. So maybe speak to that in terms of the folks who are winning in this environment, if anybody's winning. Is it real agility of making real time decisions to pivot to make those
Well,
decisions?
Andy, it's interesting you mentioned agility because in the Rex's view of the world, successful businesses, it's like a try like three things in a pyramid. It's like it's like reliability. You got to have reliable supply chains. Your services have to be reliable to your customers, and it has to be sustainable. Right, so you're not a here today, going tomorrow. It has to be sustainable, and then that third part of it is the flexibility, being agile, right? So
Mm.
so you can't just be agile without having a view to, okay, well, is this sustainable, right? So because when I do diversions, let's say, the manpower and the effort it takes to change this, like I have a container that's being shipped and I need to do a diversion to, let's say, Seattle, do the transload, just the pure man hours it takes in my department to manage this, right? So something like that's probably not sustainable because it's just exhausting to do it that way. And so the people that have been really, I guess, successful at this are companies that have like this tripartite view of of business, to where they have a plan, where their plan is to to provide to their customer, but then they have an internal methodology where they can do these diversions, and they already have pre-planned, and they already have the suppliers and vendors, like the intermodal providers, the truckers, the warehouses, everything already prepared ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. As you look forward, I mean, right now we're looking at a lot of challenges, and I was just reading the other day where just like we saw a couple years ago with the West Coast pork strikes because of negotiations, those are going to start coming back up again soon. So that's going to add to the mix in the next year or so of new negotiations, and to add to that, like the Port of Long Beach has been automating certain terminals, and now that'll be in the negotiations about the number of words. So that'll be coming up. But as we look to, because Matt mentioned in particular, great point by Matt, we're going to have a return to school in the fall, and we're going to have a huge holiday season because people are going to have a lot of cash in their pockets through stimulus and other things that are happening as the economy rebounds. So, are we going to, what's your forecast for the supply chains? Are we going to continue to see congestion? Are we going to continue to see these high spot prices and these chassis issues, which are truck issues? What do you think
So
going forward? How would people best prepare then? If you said being prepared is the key thing, how do people best prepare in
yeah,
this environment?
so first off, let me tell you where I think things are headed. Uh, because when you look right now at the retail inventories in the US, they're still at record lows. And so, based upon that, people are still procuring. And so, then in addition to that, with an eye toward, let's say, July, that's when the holiday rush starts in the ocean shipping and air freight shipping world. And I hear people say that all things are going to level off in July, but frankly, when I look at the inventory levels in the U.S. being so low, and then I see that we're coming up into to the peak season time in July, so I really, as far as the U.S. goes and Canada, I think that it's going to remain strong up through at least September. Uh, then here's another thing that you need to kind of keep in the back of your mind. So, the U.S. has been really good about the vaccinations, and the COVID rates here in the US has been dropping dramatically, and people are, out and about again. So when you look at the rest of the world, they are lagging far behind as far as the vaccinations go. So you still have, lockdowns in different countries around the world. And so I look to the US as a leading indicator of what's going to happen 6 months, maybe 9 months from now in the rest of the world. So the strong demand you're seeing in the US very well could carry over in, to these other countries, to where when they come out of the COVID and they start to buy more, procure more, if you would, then then the uh, the factories where they're making, all sorts of goods in is they're going to be continuing to struggle with these finding empty containers to load the merchandise in, having, challenges of shipping it out of the origin. And so I see this continuing on for quite a, at least, in my mind, it's going to, for us in the U.S., it's going to be, I think that it's going to be very, very challenging at least through September, and then it's going to remain strong. Maybe not so dramatic increases like we've seen, but it's going to remain strong. The market will, as far as transportation, for the foreseeable future, at least until the rest of the world level up to where we are in the U.S.
Rex, one of the things that you guys have a really good pulse on is outside of footwear. It's the broader consumer good marketplace, and whether it's electronics or building materials or other things that people are importing in. And before we pivot over to Jasmine for one of her world famous segments, I wanted to ask you about maybe some of the other industries that are out there. I talked to Mike recently, Mike Pisa at Apex, about just the building materials, and hundreds of containers are shipped out every day to meet the demand of just overall construction and home improvement and all the things that are happening here in the U.S. marketplace. That has nothing to do with footwear. And so there's all these other industries that we're kind of in our footwear bubble. Walk us through some of those industries that are really sucking up capacity and really seeing, when it comes down to it, are prioritized for that space over and above footwear and other consumer goods.
Yep, Matt, you're right on that, because when you see the industries that are, how can I say, that produce high value merchandise, whether it be like electronics or some specialty items that have a real high value per unit. Those companies, it's when you look at let's say an ocean container, and the value of the goods in the ocean container is $500,000. Okay, and you're paying, I don't know, let's say $15,000 for a container. The price per unit's not that big, right? So those industries are a bit more able to absorb the higher transportation costs than, let's say, somebody who's producing a lesser value merchandise. Let's say you're knockdown furniture, artificial flowers type of shipper. And when typically in that, I see containers that maybe $15,000 is the value of the goods in the container. My gosh, I mean, the transportation is equal to the value of the goods in the container. It's they can't afford to pay $15,000 for a container, right? So and oftentimes when these lower value goods, they're actually just sitting at origin. I'll give you a real life example. I went to Trader Joe's on Saturday, and I asked for their pine nuts, and they went to the computer, looked, and the clerk went and asked the store manager, and he came over and talked to me, and he said in their store that they are out of 165 items they cannot get. And most of these are imported commodity-based items. And so that just shows me that this is not just isolated to footwear or to some specific industry. It's across the board. This is happening to where uh, uh, it's um, it's the new norm. It seems like is that everything is in short supply. And, building
Yeah.
materials. It's just the whole supply chain is just convulsing, I should say, in
Yeah.
these challenges.
Yeah. And, Trader Joe's only sells about 170 different
Yeah,
items. So they're up a creek without a
yeah,
paddle. So, and that's why I love them. I don't need 15 different types of cereals. That's why I love Trader Joe's, but it's a great illustrative point, Rex, that things are stretched beyond the max. And we try to continue to talk through that with our members. And we really appreciate this is going to be an ongoing conversation. And so we appreciate you coming on and talking through these. We'll continue to talk about them. We have a supply chain event coming up at the end of July where we'll be talking to you all and our brands about mitigating factors and mitigation strategies. So make sure that folks check out shoesupplychain.com to sign up for that event. But before we let you go, Rex, we got to bring in Jasmine Pendergrass because she has a number of world famous segments. This one is one of my favorites. And because it's Whatcha Gettin, I'm now starting to wonder if whatever you want to get, and she'll explain to how it works, Rex, but whatever you want to get will be in short supply. You might not be able to get it. So
maybe it's not what you getting, it's when you getting.
Yeah, when you get it. So, Jasmine, welcome.
What You Got, Whatcha Gettin is just a short little fun segment that we have at the end that we talk about what shoes we have on our feet currently and what shoes we're planning to get in the near future. I will start it off, and I have my good old Target slippers on right now. And what I'm planning to get is a pair of Dunks. That's one of Sabria, our assistant's favorite Nikes, and I don't own one pair, so that is next on the list for me. So what about you, Rex? What do you have on your feet now, and what you're planning on getting?
I have to say I have sandals on my feet right now.
Okay, that works.
No shame in that.
Because I'm working from the house. And so actually what I ordered this, and I'm looking forward to get it, is I've ordered some of those the Tiva sandals, and the ones that have the closed toes, because I used to have some and I loved it, and so I've ordered some of those, and I'm expecting those to arrive any day now. So just in time for summer.
They were just on our podcast this past month, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and that speaks to the reverse supply chain. And when you're done with those, you can send them right back to them, and they'll recycle them for you.
There you go.
So, awesome.
Awesome. What about you guys? What you got on your feet now? Planning on getting anything soon, or?
Dan, you can go first.
I just have some Nike walking shoes that I've been wearing around. I kind of feel like now it's like I used to go for walks and then I'd change my shoes into something else, and now it's like all day long where I'm basically wearing the same pair because I'm kind of lazy that way, but they're also comfortable. What I'm getting was what I've already got. I got my wife some Birkenstocks, so
nice.
She was super happy with. So we got those, and then I'm sure my eldest daughter loves to destroy her shoes and make me purchase new ones. So I'm pretty sure we'll be getting some new shoes, and she's getting old enough now where she can actually start to get the athletic type shoes, right? So now she's not just kind of the kid shoe, or the infant or whatever. She's like now starting to wear the legit, more expensive shoe. So I got to go to DSW or somewhere to try to get a deal. Hopefully the supply chain calls start passing on in my pocket, because I will shop clearance. I got no shame.
Yeah, there's no shame in that. No shame.
Okay,
whatsoever.
What about you, Matt?
I will not tell a lie. I'm barefoot, so I'm not rocking any shoes right now. I don't even have socks on. I'm just totally barefoot. Now we got a lot of cicadas around, so I have to put shoes on when I go outside, or you'd be stepping on cicadas. And what I want to get, it's interesting. I got plenty of shoes, as our listeners and our our FDRA family know. But I will, Andy's point on getting his wife Birkenstocks. What's cool, I have 3 daughters, and now they're 16, 14, and almost 12. And they're now shopping in Lisa's closet, my wife's closet. So they are able to wear her shoes. So there's some recyclability, some extension of life going on in my own house right now, which is more sustainable, and it keeps us from having to go purchase shoes. But we actually still purchase a ton of shoes, so don't get me wrong. But more of the love is being spread out amongst all of our different kids, so that's fun.
Yeah, that's always nice when you're your mom's shoe size. Trust me, I used to steal my aunt's shoes all the time. It's fabulous.
I just have visions of little Jasmine going into her aunt's closet. And
I probably still have some, to be honest with you. Yeah, they have just lasted forever. So it works.
That's funny. That's funny.
All right. Well, thank you, Rex, for sharing. We hope that you continue to buy shoes. Don't get crazy like Matt, but we encourage shoe buying.
Thank you guys for having me on today. It's been a fun time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I mean, this topic, as Matt said, will be an ongoing discussion week by week, seeing where things move. But it seems like, and I hate to use the new normal, but it seems like, every year there's a different disruption to our supply chains, and different cost increases in different places. And this is where it starts to get to where you got to be really, being agile, but also just line of sight into everything. And planning ahead, as Rex said, is the key. So if you're out there and you've kind of had your hands off the wheel for a while and you've been relying on people to do the work for you, maybe it's time to jump back in and start to sketch out where your supply chains are and where your pain points are to start to address those things. And again, we'll be talking about those strategies at our shoe supply chain summit that's coming up soon. You can learn about that at fdra.org and sign up there. It'll be a low cost. But we'll be having experts come on to talk about these things as we look to a big, hopefully huge, back to school sales season and holiday season this year as we get back. And we've already been looking at the numbers, Matt. And, I think something like over half of our major companies are already exceeding or have met pre-COVID sales numbers. So the sales are coming in. The demand is there. It's the supply getting it in. So it's a different headache from what it was last year, where there was no demand and a lot of supply. So topsy-turvy times, but FDRA's here for you. Folks, we're on shoeandshow.com. That's our website. You can see our full catalog of all our episodes. You can listen to us wherever podcasts are found: Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I don't know what Android users use, but whatever you guys use to listen to podcasts. Tell your friends and colleagues about us. We try to focus on the hottest topics in the industry, bringing you new ideas and new ways forward to strengthen the industry. We appreciate you listening. If you have any ideas for future shows, if you have any troubles or struggles yourself, let us know, especially members out there. Contact us for support and help and insights. And if you're not a member, contact us to join, because we're not a cost, we're a cost solution. We can magnify your membership dues many times over to provide you key support and services on many issues, just like supply chains. So please just drop us a line, fdra.org. With that, on behalf of Jasmine and Matt and Rex, thanks again for coming on. Apex Global, one of our partners. We hope you have a great day. Keep buying shoes. I used to say keep wearing masks, but I guess you don't have to do that anymore if you got a vaccine. So please get the shot. Please get out there and buy some shoes. And until next time, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.